From Ivy League rich kid to inmate number 52503-511, that is Luigi Mangione's new identification inside the walls of Brooklyn's notorious Metropolitan Detention Centre, commonly known as MDC. The 26-year-old is the latest high-profile inmate at the Federal Detention Center. Former inmates include sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein's accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, farmer bro Martin Shkreli, and R. Kelly. Currently, Sean Diddy Combs is also being held there on federal charges, including sex trafficking and racketeering conspiracy. Mangione and Combs also sharing a lawyer, Marc Agnifilo, who is working on Mangione's case with his wife and lead counsel, Karen.
I'm going to try and minimize the amount of time he spends in very, very difficult and I believe inhumane housing conditions in the special housing unit of the Metropolitan Detention Facility.
Agnifilo recently argued to move the music mogul before trial because of the conditions at MDC. While the department wouldn't confirm details of any specific inmate, policy shows upon arrival they undergo a 21-day evaluation to determine in what unit they will be held. Because Mangione's case is high profile, it's likely he will be housed in what's called the SHU, a unit where inmates are separated from the general population, largely for safety reasons.
His interactions will be limited. I think the oversight will be far more significant. I think he'll be subject to a lot less dangers.
We are pushing for basic humanity.
In recent years, inmates, attorneys, and activists have sounded the alarm on issues like violence, overcrowding, staffing shortages, even power outages. In September, a federal judge condemned the facility's conditions, prompting the Bureau of Prisons to appoint an urgent action team to, quote, take a holistic look at the challenges at MDC Brooklyn.
So it was a big deal, and I think that tells you all you need to know with respect to what's happening. Yeah, there.
As for Mangione, a Bureau of Prisons handbook outlines daily life behind bars, including a 6 a.m. wake-up call for breakfast, sweeping and mopping his cell, a new change of clothes 3 days a week, and a chance to shop in the commissary once every 2 weeks, where he can buy candy bars, crossword books, and deodorant. In Pennsylvania, more than 150 donations were made to Mangione's commissary account. The Bureau of Prisons won't comment on inmates' accounts. CNN has learned that commissary money that was in Mangione's account in Pennsylvania will be transferred to the Bureau of Prisons for Mangione. Also important to note, his attorneys in court said that they reserve their right to request bail in this case, possibly at a later date. Brynn Gingras, CNN, New York.
Joining us now is prison consultant Sam Mangel. Sam is in touch with members of Mangione's legal team and staff attorneys from that detention center, but has not been retained by the defense. Sam, we wanted to make sure everybody was all on the same page there. Nice to have you here with us. I just first want to know from your perspective what it's like in this facility and how Mangione might be treated.
So first, thank you for having me back. I've described this facility, and it's kind of caught on as a catchphrase, as the worst facility. I mean, it's worse than hell. Where he currently is in a protective custody unit. So it's similar to a SHU, and he's being held there for evaluation. Until they can clear him psychologically, physically, emotionally, they're not going to put him into a general population environment. Even though he won't be in theoretical general population, he'll most likely be on what's called Unit 4H, which is where your high-profile inmates are. It is not a pleasant place to be. However, it is much better than the alternative, which would be a state facility, where Rikers, for a number of reasons.
And why is that?
When you're in a federal facility, you tend to not only get a better, and I use this term very generously, accommodations, but the food, the ability to access counsel, and also the nature of the prisoners tend to be a little bit different. Certainly when he leaves protective custody and gets into the floor he's going to, which is where Sean Combs is, Sam Bankman-Fried. I think there's 2 former politicians from the Mexican government. Once he gets there, he will not only be in a safer environment, he'll be allowed out of his cell, probably from 6 in the morning to 9 at night, barring counts. He'll get 3 regular meals, which tend to be much better than state meals. And overall, he will be certainly much safer in an open environment than having to require or need the protective custody of what he might need at a Rikers.
I also want to ask you, this case in particular, and we've talked about this on this show as well, just about the public support that we have seen for this man who is accused of killing Brian Thompson, and what that looks like on the internet, and just how high profile, that not only high profile, but just how he has gotten so much public support from people. What does that mean, if anything, when you're inside this facility? Does he get letters or phone calls or anything like that, or it doesn't matter at all?
Well, certainly people could put money on his account for commissary and for emails. He'll get letters. He might get fan letters. Other than that, it makes him, in my opinion, much more vulnerable, much more susceptible to extortion, especially once, not so much where he currently is. This might be the safest part of his whole journey. If he is convicted of federal charges, which would certainly be better than the state charges in terms of prisons, he's going to have to figure out with his team where to go, where will be the safest facility. Is he going to need psychological services? Or is he going to, depending upon his sentence, have to remain somewhere for life? And he will face inmates that are not fans of his, do not care about UnitedHealthCare, usually care about one thing: what can you give me? How much money can your family send me, or else? And it's a very scary predicament that he and his family have to be concerned with going forward. This will be, in my opinion, the safest part of his whole experience, being in Brooklyn MDC.
Yeah, and I know, again, as I said at the top of this interview, you are advising his legal team. You've not been retained by them. Is that something you all have talked through, just his particular situation, in the fact that the public does know that he comes from a well-to-do family, things like that?
So I've spoken with his legal team. I've spoken with them on a number of occasions. I've also spoken with the legal staff at Brooklyn MDC as recently as yesterday to try to help arrange the legal visits for him, for his counsel. So I wanted to clarify that. I'm sure that they were blindsided the other day when they learned it was federal. So they're going to have to pivot and do whatever is necessary to deal with that charge. I'm sure that they were probably preparing for the state charges and a potential state incarceration. Federal is completely different, and it's something that I'm sure that they will be addressing as time goes forward.
All right, Sam Mangione, thank you so much for your insight on this. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Jessica. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you.